Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We are taking ancient biblical devotions, right? And we're putting it under the cold, hard lens of modern economics. We usually talk about faith in terms of feelings or theology, but what actually happens when we look at it through the eyes of an accountant holding a ledger?
So what happens when you apply the logic of an actuary to ancient faith? It's kind of an unexpected way to frame a deeply spiritual topic, isn't it? Risk management. We have to ask, is faith actually supposed to be a profitable investment? Because when the spreadsheets are open and the literal costs are tallied up, does following God make any rational sense at all? Well, let's trace this math.
To figure this out, we're going to start by setting the scene. Imagine a desolate, dusty road leading out of Moab, heading towards Bethlehem. On this road, we find three widows, a mother-in-law named Naomi and her two daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. They are facing a massive, absolutely devastating life crossroad. Suddenly, Naomi just stops, and because she genuinely loves these young women, she pauses right there to force them into a highly realistic, massive financial decision.
And here, Naomi delivers what is basically a flawless, purely rational economic argument for cutting their losses. She presents them with three brutal truths, what we'll call Naomi's three no's. Number one, there is physically no possibility for her to bear more sons to be their husbands. Number two, even if she magically did, they have absolutely no time to wait decades for hypothetical sons to grow up. And number three, if they follow her back to Bethlehem, they'll have zero status. They are destined to be foreign widows stuck in lifelong poverty.
Looking at the estimated survival probability really illustrates the intense mental math happening on that road. Returning to Moab, that was a solid safety net. It offered an 80% chance of survival. They'd be in their hometown with a really good chance to remarry. But walking to Bethlehem? Going to Bethlehem meant almost guaranteed total loss. It meant selling themselves into a lifetime of gleaning for scraps, dropping their survival probability down to a dismal 5%. It's a huge drop.
So, when faced with this harsh reality, we see a really sharp contrast. On one side, we have Orpah. She makes a perfectly logical decision, short-term rationality, to stay in her comfort zone and protect herself. And honestly, we really shouldn't judge Orpah here. Her tears were real, but her natural human calculator just clicked on and she did the math. But then, on the other side, we have Ruth. Ruth makes an astonishingly irrational choice, long-term irrationality, committing to a spiritual covenant despite the massive cost. She defied literally every law of economic and psychological survival.
And you have to understand, Ruth wasn't just being emotionally supportive here. If we look at the original Hebrew, the word used when Ruth clung to Naomi is the exact same life-binding, covenantal terminology used for the marriage union back in Genesis. It represents this tenacious, unbreakable attachment. She wasn't just tagging along for the ride, she was legally and spiritually fusing her entire fate to Naomi's completely ruined ledger.
Just listen to her famous declaration, "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die." She wasn't making some speculative investment for future gains. She didn't follow Naomi thinking, hey, maybe this will turn around and I'll strike it rich. No way. She looked at a guaranteed lifetime of poverty and basically said, I'm all in. She had literally planned out her burial site, accepting a totally bankrupt outcome. She bypassed the material loss entirely because she caught a glimpse of Naomi's God.
Okay, so let's fast forward. We're jumping over 1,000 years later into the New Testament to see how this whole concept builds. Picture this. A massive crowd is following Jesus, and they have some highly lucrative expectations. The atmosphere is literally electric. They've just watched him multiply bread to feed thousands, they've seen miracles, and they are utterly convinced he's marching to Jerusalem to spark a political revolution. They want in on the ground floor. But then comes the reality check as Jesus turns to address the crowd.
It's fascinating because the crowd essentially view Jesus as a guaranteed 100x stock return for political power. They completely misunderstood his actual mission. Take a look at this stark contrast. What the crowd wanted was wealth and power, right? Their calculators were working overtime, anticipating this high ROI and ultimate comfort. But what did Jesus demand? Sacrifice and loss. Instead of wealth, he promises a literal march to the executioner's block. He demands the total surrender of life.
He tells them straight up, whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Now, what's really interesting here is that Jesus acts exactly like Naomi did back on that dusty road. He delivers this grueling terms of service to a crowd that was just expecting an easy payout. He throws absolute cold water on the parade. Following him isn't a VIP ticket to earthly glory. It literally requires picking up an instrument of horrific execution.
He actually uses these parables about building a tower and going to war to outline 3 crucial steps. 1. Sit down. 2. Calculate the absolute cost. And 3. Decide if you are genuinely willing to lose everything. He's telling them to do the math. True faith isn't just some blind emotional high. It requires looking squarely at the absolute cost, the potential loss of your reputation, your wealth, maybe even your life, and making a conscious, deliberate choice.
And this brings us to what we could call a very modern epidemic: actuary faith. Think about it. Believers today often act like spiritual actuaries. We're constantly calculating our service to avoid any personal deficit or discomfort. You know how it is. We protect our time, our giving, our relationships. We are constantly maneuvering to make sure we never get hurt and we never give more than we get back. Basically, we tend to run at the very first sign of a spiritual deficit.
Let's bring it back to Ruth for a second. Remember, when she went to Bethlehem, she was just hoping to scavenge a few leftover stalks of wheat just to survive. Today, a lot of people approach God doing the exact same thing, seeking the wheat. They just want the blessings, the health, the immediate payoffs. But Ruth's irrational devotion, that led her to seeking the field owner himself, Boaz, even while in total poverty. And the beautiful thing is, when you have the field owner, you don't ever need to count the grains of wheat.
Which leads us to the ultimate bottom line of this whole explainer, the ultimate unprofitable deal. Mathematically speaking, the cross was the most unprofitable, totally irrational transaction in all of human history. Just think about it from a purely economic standpoint. The creator of the universe traded his absolute glory and flawless life to purchase a broken, rebellious, entirely bankrupt humanity. The cost-to-benefit ratio? It is absolutely absurd.
So why accept the cost? How can anyone actually make these seemingly irrational, sacrificial choices? Well, it's not because believers are just naturally noble or heroic. Not at all. It's because they are reacting to a God who absorbed an infinite loss first. When you see a love that completely bypassed rationality to save you, that kind of overwhelming grace just shatters the spiritual calculator. It completely melts away the need to constantly measure what you're getting in return.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought to ponder regarding your own spiritual abacus. When you sit down and look closely at why you believe what you believe, what are you actually pursuing? If you're calculating the exact return on your faith, are you following the field owner, or are you just looking for free wheat? Thanks for joining me.